pandemic created at least 40 new big pharma billionaires. Pharmaceutical corporations like Moderna and Pfizer made $1,000 of profit every second from the COVID-19 vaccine. More than two-thirds of Congress received campaign funding from pharmaceutical companies in the 2020 election. Pfizer chairman Albert Bourla told Time magazine in July 2020 that his company was developing a COVID vaccine for the good of humanity, not for money. And of course, Pfizer made $100 billion in profit in 2022. And may I just mention that finally, and this is also a fact, that the American public, funded the development of that. The German public funded the BioNTech vaccine. When it came to the profits, they took the profits. When it came to the funding, you paid for the funding. All I'm querying is this.
Yes.
Is if you have an economic system in which pharmaceutical companies benefit hugely from medical emergencies, where a military-industrial complex benefits from war, where energy companies benefit from energy crises, you are going to generate states of perpetual crisis, where the interests of ordinary people separate from the interests of the elite. Pandemic create.
Well, listen, let me be very real with you. Let me be very frank. I don't think there's one lie that was told in this place, allegedly, because you know how YouTube and every other company, every other media now outlet tells us we have to say allegedly because we can't prove this stuff and etc., right? But all that was happening with COVID. Look, I did some videos about it back in the day, and I said, listen, for me personally, my personal opinion, and it's my personal opinion, is that COVID, a lot of it was a hoax. I didn't say COVID wasn't real. COVID was real. The panic that was spread, the fear that was spread, was for a particular purpose. But you can have a dualistic thing. There can be a real threat, and there can also be a benefit to certain people when that threat occurs. We know that war is financially lucrative, right? We know that gives certain countries ammunition to now receive finance or aid. We know this already, right? The realistic situation we're having here at the moment is this the reason why Russell Brand has been litigated now from the quote-unquote matrix, which is, I guess, the system of the devil? Because that's really what they're quoting. When they say the matrix, what they really mean is the system of the devil, which is what 2 Corinthians 4 verse 4 says, that the god of this world is Satan, right? But for those who want to call it the matrix, right? And so, is the matrix now attacking Russell Brand and accusing him of sexual allegations from several women at that, because he decided to expose, or at least say his opinion on national television, the programming of human beings in a Western society about quote unquote a hoax or duplicitous motives behind promoting COVID? Is that the reason why he's being touted as? I mean, there are people before him, the Andrew Tates, the Trumps, who have also gone through certain situations that are similar, and they seek to empower the people, and they are personally quote unquote prophets to the people because they let you know, listen, as soon as I tap the matrix, this is what's going to happen. But is it dualistic? Okay, let me give you an example. Is it dualistic? See, when Jesus decided to preach, let me not even go there because it's going to get deep real quick. I don't want to keep this video short. All right, cool. Let me go there. When Jesus decided to preach the gospel, which is that Jesus Christ is the Lord and personal Savior, when Jesus Christ decided to preach that he is the way, the truth, and the light, the Jews at the time, the Pharisees and the Sadducees who ran the system at the time, you can call that the matrix at that particular time, society at that particular point in time, they immediately sought to kill Jesus once he started making statements about mankind and the fact that they didn't have to follow the powers that be. Why is this important, this story? Because it's exactly what's happening in our society right now. In Jesus' time, he wasn't fighting the Romans. No, he was fighting he was campaigning almost in a sense against his own people, the Jews, right? Or the Sadducees and the Pharisees, who believed that they were supposed to be the leaders and they were supposed to lead people closer to God. They were doing the opposite. The Bible talks about a time where he goes into the temple and they've turned it into a den of thieves. What Jesus came to do, he came to preach. He didn't come to fight nobody physically. He wasn't coming to overthrow their government. What he was coming to do was deliver mankind from the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of light. Spiritual transference, right? And so when he came to preach on earth, his what was pushed back against Jesus was, you're not telling the truth. You're a liar. You're this, you're that. But what they were concerned with was the assuasion of people and their belief system. If they started to believe Jesus, they would stop listening to them and they would lose their power. If they start listening to Jesus and following him, they would no longer have control over people. If they start listening to Jesus, their programming would stop with the people, and they would have their programming and their dominance over them would stop, and they would see Jesus as their savior, and they'd see Jesus as somebody who could free them from the shackles that were around the people at the time. Why is this so important? Because whenever the likes of Andrew Tate, the reality of the situation is none of them are Jesus. The reality of the situation is each one of these people are not prophets, they're men. And they're not prophets of God. They don't hear from God, right? They're men. And these men have allegations against them. Why? Of course, when Jesus was the allegations against Jesus that were false in some aspects, where they were talking about how you said you're the son of God, he said, hey, look, you said, you the one that said I was, you're the one that said this. Here's what what I've said already. You know what truths I've stated on, and I'll stand by that. When they asked him to rescind his truth, he said, I'm not going to rescind it because it is the truth. Now, the reality of the situation is these men like Russell Brand, come and take that same position to be a messiah to people. Say, hey, look at this falsity they're giving us. The Matrix is telling you false lies. While I believe the Matrix is telling false lies, I can hold two truths to be true, knowing that there are a litany of allegations against Russell Brand and his situation, right? Of women coming forward saying, hey, he's done, great to me. He's like physically assaulted me. He's done all of these things to me, right? And there are 5 of these women. Now, of course, someone could say they hired these people. Yeah, they could. I'm not gonna lie to you, they could. But his reality of the situation, it reminds me very much of Satan, because see, Satan doesn't lie. In some instance, when I say that, let me take it back because you're gonna misquote me. Satan is the father of lies. But what I was trying to say is that he uses the law against man. Why is that important? Because the same thing happens when it comes to someone like Russell Brand, right? What the Matrix will do is it will go back and take all the past indiscretions that you have where you've broken the law, and it will represent it in the modern day, right? Now, most of it, I don't think is lies. If I'm honest with you, listening to some of the testimonies by these women and then coming out, one of them is a 16-year-old girl, and for UK, that's not necessarily legal. It's immoral. Actually, no, it's illegal. 16. It might be illegal because he's over the age of 18. It's immoral. And that's not necessarily breaking the law, but in that instance, it would be if she was 16, right? But so now, what's interesting about this is that the Matrix will represent what bad deeds you've done, because that's the same thing that Satan does to man. He goes, before you say that he's worthy of your time, Lord, before you say he can enter heaven, let me just present the law of God and say he failed here, 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 here. Here's this videotape, his VT. He's failed here, here, here. Why am I bringing this in? Because that's Russell Brand right now. Russell Brand is playing the Messiah role. And what is really interesting is somebody put this tweet up, and I think it was amazing tweet to kind of break.
At least 40 new fire.
Sorry. Oh my God, that's not what I want to do. Apologies, guys. Hold on. I want to.
Pandemic created at least 40 new big farm.
Stop. I want to bring this tweet. Hold it, if I can bring it up here. And I love this tweet because it was right on the money. It says these guys use the same tactics. Trump, Tate, Brand appeal to disenfranchised people, becoming their guru, tell supporters that they predicted that one day some people will come to arrest them because shadowy characters kill off and shut down Robin Hood characters like them. Then when the crimes of their past begin to catch up with them, they look like a prophet to their followers. They make podcasts like, see, I predicted this. Course you did, nonce. You absolutely knew what would come out someday. The cult is a safety blanket. And that's essentially what I wanted to point out. The reality of the situation is these people are not prophets. That's what makes Jesus different from everybody else, because he really was a prophet. And so prophet, king, and priest that Christ occupies those roles. What's interesting is that absolutely right. I sort of agitate. I sort of now Russell Brand. They start telling us if they've predicted the future. But if you knew that you have things coming out, you knew you had sins coming out, of course it's going to look like I'm predicting the future. The Matrix isn't necessarily attacking you, but it is attacking you. It's giving you a mirror to hold up to yourself. These are the things that you have broken. And unfortunately, not even unfortunately, he seems to have, Russell Brand, broken some quintessential laws when it comes to women and young girl, in a sense, who's 16. And I think to myself, you're not, we can hold two truths here. You could be telling the truth about these pharmaceutical companies and them trying to rob us and them trying to, basically put a hoax in. But you can also hold you accountable for the fact that, you as a person, you've done these things, and therefore there's a recompense. It's coming back up. And so therefore you're not actually prophesying. You're really just kind of like saying what would happen in the future potentially. You're preparing your audience for it. And listen, I've spoken longer than I wanted to. I wanted to keep it nice and short, but Russell Brand, I don't think has been attacked by the Matrix. I just think the reality of the situation is he's done some disgusting, horrible things in the past, and those things are being used by the Matrix to attack.